It is another gorgeous day, and it is another day of dose of Did You Know? And with me today is, oh man, we met. I'm going to tell the story. Well, I'm going to tell the story of how we met, but we have Bryce with us today from the Boston. He's out in Boston. He's only a little bit away, but he's tucked away on an empty floor hiding. Nobody can find him now. Yeah. If someone comes barging in, we know he's been caught. The secrets behind Bryce, it's building up. But so before I let Bryce tell everybody who he is, this is what I love about when, I'm on this mission of being the best person I can be, evolving into who it is. And it's like a layer. Sometimes I think I'm like, cool, I'm in a cool place. And then my eyes open, I'm like, wow, I didn't know how much I needed to let go of, or I'm seeing things in such a different way. So years ago, I met this man named Joe in a bar in Vegas. Okay. And just like a quick conversation, my friend, it was a bunch of people. Let's not get the wrong idea here. It was like a bunch of people all talking. 3 months later, I get a message from this young man named Dom, and he says, ma'am, I don't know why my Uncle Joe said I need to talk to you, but he said I did. Would you mind? I said, well, absolutely. Now, fast forward, that was probably 3-4 years ago. Fast forward, Dom's this cool ass guy who, this is Dom, Lift for Vets. Yeah, he lives in Texas. He comes up to do one of his lift parties in Dover, New Hampshire. I come to support him, and boom, bam, here we are today.
Yep, here we are. Yep.
I just love that story because you never know. If you are just kind to everybody, you don't know where that'll lead you in 3 or 4 years. Right. So it's one of my favorite stories. But this is who Bryce is to me and how we met. So Bryce, why don't you tell the world who you are?
Yeah. I've been thinking about this. Yeah, you said 3 minutes, and that's a challenge for me. So not because it's too long either. I've got a lot of layers. I'm kind of like a really large onion, I guess is the best way to put it. So I was kind of thinking of like some words, like descriptive words or a story. I've been in the Marine Corps for 21 years, proudly serving, absolutely love every minute of it. I still don't know what I want to be when I grow up. So just continuing to ride this ride. I'm also a military brat, so I came from a military family, and I'm sure we'll get into that a little bit. But outside of that, I'm one of those guys that I guess I'm just constantly pursuing, like you said, trying to be better than I was the next day. And I think in order to do that, you have to be very open and receptive to your surroundings and the people around you. So I look for opportunities at all times. I guess I'm kind of like an example of adaptation, because I'm constantly looking for an opportunity for something new. And I think I try to pull the positive out of that and the joy out of every opportunity that I have to meet people like you, all the other thousands of people I've come across in my adventures and my travels. And I just look for, whatever, like life's an adventure, right? So I'm kind of I'm on this roller coaster, still trying to figure it out. I think the older I get, the more I realize the less I know. I think you probably figure you have it all figured out when you're younger. And I'm learning now that there's just so much out there. So opportunist, all about balance and just trying to go out there and live my best life. And that's me in a nutshell. So
him in a nutshell, which it doesn't even go.
Oh, yeah.
It can't even, but I have to tell you, Andrew, another Marine, is watching. He's out in Tennessee, but you know what? He is from this area. He's from Exeter, my area.
Yeah.
He's out there. He's a good friend. So I have to tell Andrew. So Bryce is in charge of the recruiting office that Jacob recruited out of, and it was around that time, like it was when Jake left, it was before my accidents. And I have huge gaps in my memory, so I don't remember Bryce. We've had this conversation, and Jacob's worse than I am, so we're like, but I know you were there. So small little world on that part too. It's not just through this Dom connection, but through my own personal son. Going through the recruiting process and going off, it was from your office.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Great office. A lot of really great Marines have come out of there in my time out here. And we've got multiple other stations out here, and of course everywhere. We have good Marines, but
I remember, I've got to do a little mom like montage here. I remember when Jake was still in high school and I had to like sign off for him to go. And every, I don't know, it was like Thursday at 3 or something like that. He would go up there all the time. And, you know, he was like the low man because he was still in high school. He didn't have anything, but he went and he loved it. It was, it got him through high school because he wasn't like a scholar. You know, school wasn't his jam. He's more of a hands-on kind of guy. So those are my good memories of doing that. And then I got to be like, oh, look what my baby's going to. This is so cool, you know, whatever. So I want to go like, how did you, this is going to be an in-depth question. How did you pick to do what you were going to do? Did you know, like because what I've heard is no one says I want to be a recruiter, but that is, I always get it on the wife side of it being very challenging. And then when, you know, I've talked to a lot of military wives about you and they're like, man, you got a good one. You have like, that's a good guy. So how'd you end up there? And maybe it came from like when you were a kid. You know, I don't know.
Not at all. It's so complicated, and just the way that it all unfolded really was, I think, a little bit of luck, a little bit of chance, timing, a lot of prayer, a lot of answered prayer. When you start out in the Marine Corps, becoming a recruiter is not something you can do right out of basic training and then going into your, you know, first year, first tour in the Marine Corps, your first term of enlistment is what they would call that. So it's something that's it's considered a B-billet for most individuals. And what will happen is those Marines that are deciding to make a career out of the Marine Corps at some point in time will have the opportunity to serve as on a B-billet. There's multiple ones. We have a drill instructor is a B-billet, recruiting duty is a B-billet. Some Marines go over and serve in the embassies. We have 119, I believe, if that might have changed, somewhere around 119 embassies across the world. And Marines are charged with providing security at those embassies, which is an awesome opportunity for anyone that wants to travel. So those are some of the different jobs that you can do. And for most, what happens is you come out and you do your B-billet for somewhere around 36 months, 3 years, essentially. And then you go back to your normal MOS for a very, very select few individuals. I guess if you're good enough, and I don't want to sound cocky by any sense, but somebody thought
you got to own it. You got to own what you got.
Somebody thought I was doing okay on recruiting duty. And so there are opportunities for certain Marines to stay in that B-billet as a career. So I am actually now a career recruiter. I didn't start that way, but I did my 3 years of recruiting duty in Maine. And then following that, I was offered the opportunity to put in a package and see if I could stay out here and make this a career. And I got accepted. And so what ends up happening then is you become a part of this MOS called the 8412 community. There's a lot of ups and downs and mixed views on 8412s. They like to say that we drank the Kool-Aid, so to speak, is one of the terms that most Marines will say. But essentially what we do is we will remain in this career on recruiting duty, but our job is essentially to go out there and train those new recruiters as they come out. And that's one of my favorite parts of the job, really, at the end of the day, is I get Marines, sergeants, staff sergeants, sometimes gunnery sergeants that come out here, and they are thrown into a part of the Marine Corps that is completely foreign to them. And it's not like anything else that they've ever experienced. And they could be exceptional Marines in their MOS. And they come out here and it's like starting everything from the ground up. It's an extremely challenging job. It's very different from anything else I've ever done in the Marine Corps. And my gift that I get to give back to them is to help bring them into the fold and train them and essentially help them to become successful and really essentially come out on the other end of a better product. So they go back to their regular MOS, or the Fleet Marine Corps, as we call it. And they would go back there, and hopefully out here they've, gotten promoted and they've had an opportunity to grow and learn some new skills and really influence and shape and help the future of the Marine Corps. At the end of the day, that's what we do. We go out there and we find the next generation of Marine. And for me, I'm kind of on the end of the spectrum now, and I know my time is coming to an end. So I like to think that I have the opportunity to help mold and shape the future of the Marine Corps. I'm out there hand selecting individuals to take my place, essentially, which I think is kind of a cool thing. It's something that not everybody gets the chance to do.
Well, see, I think what makes you different, though, is your heart. Because Meredith is watching, and Meredith said, Okay, I gotta read all of it so you can answer it. What RSS is Bryce? My husband was RSS Manchester. We left 2 years ago. And she said, glad that's over.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Yeah. So 2 years ago, I was in Albany, New York, and I was covering upstate New York. But prior to that, I was out here. I started on recruiting duty in 2007. I was in Maine, in Augusta, Maine, and Central Maine. Actually recruited in a small office in Farmington, which is not anywhere that I was familiar with.
No, that's like a little like, boop.
Yeah, little travel and adventure there, and then slowly but surely started to make my way south, I guess you would say, everything south from Farmington.
Yeah.
And made it down to Augusta, and I ran that office for a while. And then when I became a career recruiter, I then was picked up by the command and worked at our headquarters, which used to be in Portsmouth, and that's how I got familiar with Dover and that area. But my entire footprint or area of operation for my time as a career recruiter in Portsmouth, I covered all of Maine, all of New Hampshire, and all of Eastern Massachusetts. So the Manchester office is one of ours that I spent a lot of time in. I probably know most of the Marines that have come out of there. And we have 12 offices essentially that are scattered all over that footprint. And then I left for a little while, went to New York, and did the same thing out there with the upstate New York command. Was called and asked to come back here to help out in this AO, and we're now in Boston as our headquarters, but we still have the same area, except we've also picked up Europe. So we have 2 Marines that are over in Germany, and they cover all of the Europe Department of Defense schools.
Yeah, I thought that was so funny when you told me that a while ago. I'm like, oh, they just popped in.
Yeah, I like to throw that out there. Yeah, we cover Maine, New Hampshire, Massachusetts, and Germany.
I get just a little thing. So Meredith said her husband's last name is Caruso. He almost became 8412. Did you know him?
Yes, I did.
Or know him?
Actually, I do know Caruso. When he came out here, he was a recruiter. I want to say Concord, maybe, or possibly Nashville. And then ended up taking over in Manchester as what we call the staff NCOIC. I did know him fairly well. So he was a new Marine recruiter when I met him, and I would have been responsible for teaching his training when he first came out, his initial training. So knew him very well.
So there you go. His wife's watching.
It's a small Marine Corps. Yeah,
it's funny. It's a small Marine Corps. I had this question that I wanted to ask you that was very specific. Oh, yes. And I got sidetracked. How do you handle because the wives that I've talked to, it's very hard to watch their husbands kind of go through that and all the different challenges. Mm-hmm. And you're married, you have an amazing wife, you have an amazing family. And so how do you handle it? How does she handle it? What do you I have to talk about this. I didn't tell you I'm going to talk on this, but I did say I get off topic because I know it's very challenging for wives.
It is very challenging. So we've been married, 15 years, going on 16 years this July, which is crazy. And 13 of those years have been spent on recruiting duty. It is every day is a challenge, and I am extremely grateful to have her at my side. And I can tell you that it's a lot of grace and a lot of forgiveness and a lot of communication. And that's something that we have had to continue to work on. And we're certainly not, an example or perfect by any means. We're still learning and growing together. But it has been a really big challenge for us. And it is for most Marines that come out. It's a very stressful job. And I think a part of it kind of goes back to what I was saying before, where you're coming out into an environment where it's brand new. Like, you're a Marine and you've been in the Marine Corps for a while and you're doing great things. And you've obviously been, highly decorated, so to speak, because we only take, the very best to come out on these billets, especially considering we're getting ready to put you out in hometown USA. It's a very independent duty. What the challenge is that you're home and you're working close to home, but the hours and your schedule is very fluid. It's constantly changing, and you're kind of at the mercy of the relationships and the families and the applicants and the influencers, so to speak. It's their schedules that you're working around. And I think oftentimes what happens is a lot of the spouses are just it's very difficult to understand. My husband might be 5 miles down the road at an office but he can't come home for dinner because he's out at some other person's house, you know, talking to the
Yeah.
17-year-old, 18-year-old kid or whatever it is. And in the eyes of the wife, like it's very stressful and it's hard to understand. I think, and a lot of that stems from the Fleet Marine Corps, where your husband is either deployed and you just simply can't see him at all, or your spouse, I should say, is deployed and you just can't see them at all, or they're home, you know, at a reasonable hour every night, and you leave work at work, you come home, you do the family thing, and then you go back the next day. This is a job that is relationship built, and so a lot of it, you really can't leave it at work. It's very difficult to kind of have a end of the day, come home, reset, start back tomorrow. So it is a skill that you definitely have to learn with communication, and you just got you kind of have to make it work. It's a challenge. It's not an easy thing.
Yeah, I do know that. And that's kind of, just so you know, that I just want to talk about this just for a smidget because it shows who you are. Which I just had a conversation actually with another Marine this morning. Well, he's a veteran and he lives in Boston, and it was about your actions. Your actions show your heart and who you are. And it might, you know, you might not reap the rewards of that like right away, but eventually it comes to it. So one of the reasons why we connected so much was because, you know, my heart is building that family relationship. I mean, I wrote a freaking book about it because that's how much it meant to me, and keeping that unit strong. And we've had multiple conversations of how can you basically use me to build that, and vice versa, to build that relationships for those families that are going through their careers. And I think that says so much about you as a person. So I have to put that out there because that action, you know, is, man, it means the world. That's why, like, that's why we're here, and that's why I stayed connected with you for me, was because I can be like, it's not just a numbers. Yeah, you have to do what you have to do, and that's your job, but you actually care. So, yeah, that I you take that, pat yourself on the back, because I can't pat you virtually, and I want to thank you. Thank you for that. And Brian says, good segment. He's another veteran guy that I know. He's out in Kentucky.
Nice.
Got a lot of Southern.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's Midwest Southern, but a lot of Southern things are there. All right, so I want to go back. I want to talk about, did you see yourself at, like, growing up? Because you mentioned that you grew up in a military household. So when you look back into your life, can you be like, oh yeah, I can totally see that I ended up here? Or was it a huge surprise?
It depends on what Bryce you ask, and like the age bracket there, because I, just like every child, I think I hopped around with dreams and, you know, what I wanted to be. So my father was a captain in the Navy. He was a P-3 pilot. I was born on a naval installation in Maryland, and in my first 15 years of life, we moved all over the world together. Every 3 years, he was in another duty station. I'm an only child, so that probably explains a lot of things about me. But mother and father happily married, been together for I don't even know how many years now, and it's just been the three of us, and we've just kind of traveled all over the world. And I think there was always a part of me that wanted to be in the military. You know, what branch I was going to choose and all that didn't really come until later. I joke around because my father was in the Navy, and a lot of people, especially on recruiting duty, when you're talking to families or applicants, individuals that are interested in the military, they always say, like, well, if your dad was in the Navy, why wouldn't you want to follow in his footsteps? The joke in my family was my father was in the Navy, but every other male in my family has pretty much served in the Marine Corps. So my grandfather was a Marine, two uncles that were Marines. And every time we would get together for, family events, they were always kind of nudging me like, you're going Marine, right?
I was going to ask that.
Yeah.
Like, what kind of crap did you guys give each other? Because I mean, hear when I get on my Devoted to a Soldier panel before it goes live, oh my gosh, the crap that goes, especially when you have an Army and a Marine together.
Yeah,
I crack up.
It's sibling rivalry is what it comes down to. I mean, we all love each other at the end of the day, and we work together and we all serve the same purpose. But yeah, there's definitely a lot of pride and sibling rivalry with us, and that was no different in my family. My dad was kind of the outcast. He got accepted to go to the Naval Academy. So he took that opportunity, and that's kind of shaped his path. The rest of them were enlisted like myself. And yeah, I always had this desire to serve. And I think it comes from just being around, the military installations growing up. I would always see the Marines out there. They have what's called security force teams, which are usually on the Navy installations, and they are there to provide security for the Navy. And I would always see these guys, and it was in the mind of a 15-year-old, or whatever, in the eyes of a 15-year-old, it's the guys that are cami painted up, and they're out there with at that time would have been M16 A2 service rifles, and they're out there, hiding in the woods and doing all the cool stuff. And for me, that was always the lure, right? Like, oh, I want to be that guy. My dad's like flying in the plane, and I always just like admired those guys that were out there, rain or shine, didn't matter what the weather was. They're out there doing the do. And that was just for me. I was like, that's it. I want to do that. So I knew that was going to happen. But as far as serving for the time that I've been in, or what I've actually become now, no clue. I would have, if you had asked the 17-year-old Bryce, you're going to be serving in the Marine Corps for 21 years, you're going to be a mass sergeant, I would have said you're crazy. I actually had a desire somewhat to become a professional DJ. Got really big into music in high school, and started learning how to use turntables and records, and that was it. I was sold like that. I'm passionate, and that's what I want to do, and I'm going to be this like world-renowned DJ. And my dad was like, absolutely not. Not happening at all.
On that really quickly.
Yeah.
Could you imagine a DJ Bryce? I just can't
Yeah.
It's like one of those movies where you can you look back and you took a different path, and
yeah, definitely. Yeah. I get into things, and I'm 110% the whole way. Like, I just want to, music, I can learn how to produce music. I can, start spinning records, 110%, fitness, 110%, want to get into that. I'm passionate. I'm driven,
Speaking of that, like, if you want some good fitness videos or motivation, you got to follow him on Instagram. It's Soapbox. It's easy. Just write it down. Soapbox on Instagram.
Soapbox
so
Snyder.
I gotta, you've been active, Marine longer than you have had your wife. So how did that happen? How did you meet your wife while you were serving? And she said, okay.
Yeah. I guess I was a really good recruiter back then. I just didn't know it.
The gift of gab.
I actually started my first couple of years in the Marine Corps. I started as a reserve Marine, and I was stationed in Maryland. And the reason for that is my father was adamant about me going to college. He was like, you can join the Marine Corps. I'm all about it. I think that's great, but you will go to college full time. And there's multiple ways you can do that in the military, but the path that we basically agreed on was you'll go in the reserves, you'll serve, 4 years at least, so that you can get through college, and then whatever you want to do from there, you can do. And I think his overall underlying agenda was to get me to switch and become an officer, which was kind of like he was peppering me to do that along the way. I don't want to say unfortunately, but what happened was Iraq happened. So the invasion occurred in 2003. That was my senior year of college as a reservist, and I was activated and went over with the first wave in the invasion, and that kind of put the kibosh on my senior year of college for the time being. And then the agreement was I'm going to come back and finish college and keep going down that road. Deployed over there with the unit I was a part of, and fell in love with every minute of it. And that was it right there. My mind was made up that I will serve active duty no matter what it takes, and go forward that way. So when I came, it was during that senior year, just before my deployment, I met my wife while I was attending college. I went to Towson University in Maryland. She happened to be down there. She didn't go to Towson University, and I met her, and that was it. I was hooked.
You were 100% in. You're all in when you're into something. You're in.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, exactly. And so we met, and we started dating, kind of just real, like friendly at first and low key. And right in the midst of when we started kind of getting a little more serious, boom, I'm going to Iraq. Which was kind of crazy. Like, you come home one day and it's like, hey, I know we were talking about moving in together and starting a life together, but I'm going to have to put that on hold for a little bit. And that was obviously a huge challenge for us. And I left it very, nobody really knew what was going to happen at that point. It was all new. It was all unfamiliar territory. We hadn't been in any major conflicts before that for quite some time, not in my time in the military, at least. And a lot of the guys that I served with, like my senior leaders, also had not been through anything like that. So it was very new for everyone. And we were like, okay, we're in this together. We're going to figure this thing out. But nobody could really give you any solid guidance on this is exactly how it's going to be, or this is exactly what you should do. In regards to relationships and families and timelines and communication.
Yeah.
We didn't have the internet like we do now. And, I mean, it was crazy. So we kind of left it like, hey, listen, obviously I'm signed up to do this and I'm committed and I'm going to do this. And I had to kind of, this is like, I guess getting a little bit personal, but that's cool. I had to kind of in my own mind, meet myself halfway and say, I need to be willing to accept that I come home and maybe my girlfriend has moved on. And I can't fault her for that because it's not fair to make, in my opinion, to make somebody wait for you and you don't even know when you're coming back or if you're going to come back at that time, And so I had to kind of be right down the middle, 50% accepting of either I'm going to come back and she's going to be here, or I'm going to come back and she's going to have moved on, and that'll be great for her because she deserves that, and I'll have to start over. And so I kind of like forced myself to live that way my entire time over there and just be okay with whatever happened, whatever the outcome was. As luck would have it, I came home and she was waiting for me and had remained in contact with my family and had really kind of just continued to live, life back here. And that was the sign for me that like, okay, this is a keeper.
You know what? It's like that blind faith. People say you have to have, just what is blind faith. That's a great example is you released the control of the outcome. And I have to say, I believe, at least from what I've seen in my own experience of life and then listening to other people, is when you release that outcome and that's actually what faith is. And it's very hard, very seldom as human beings, we allow ourselves to completely be like, okay, like you said, the most purposeful outcomes happen. It's like, but if you didn't, and I'm just going to put it out there, I think maybe if you didn't, you try to control it, you might not have had that same outcome.
I agree. Yeah.
From even to this day in that relationship, in your relationship with her.
Yeah. And I think that's big, right? Like human nature, I think in most senses, like we do like control, like we want to control every situation. We want to be in control of every situation. And I think especially being 20 years old and, full of testosterone, like you think you've got it all figured out and you're in control. And how quickly that changes, right? And so that was a really challenging thing for me to go through. And I think it maybe did, and I've never really actually talked about this before, but I think in some way that probably has shaped me to this day. And I still struggle with control, just like I think everybody does. But that was a significant thing for me. And we remained in contact the whole time I was there as much as possible. It was a lot different back then. You didn't have, we had satellite phones. I think we rated like a 5-minute phone call every week or something like that back home, and you had to hope and pray that the person was available and they answered, because you only got your 5 minutes, and then if they didn't answer, you didn't get them. So I talked to her a few times on a sat phone while I was there, and then we just had the good old letters, and care packages, which in my particular unit we were mobile all the time, so mail did not catch up to us very often, and that was just kind of the way it was. So there was a couple times there, I'm sure 3 months or so would go by and we wouldn't hear from each other, and that was my family and and everyone else, and just given the circumstances, and we understood that, and that was it was what it was. But I didn't even think about the stress that it put on them back home. After coming home and talking to my family, it was like, wow, I didn't even think about how bad it was for you. Yourself, so she, God bless her, she stayed the course, and my family took her in and really, continued to develop that relationship on the back end. And I came home and was like, all right, here we go. This is cool.
Yeah.
So we
Bryce into that nice world.
Yeah. And so we after that, coming home, we decided to move to Maine. That's where she's from. And so we moved back up here to Maine, and I became a training instructor at a reserve unit up here. And basically worked up there for a short period of time, and then got pulled to come on recruiting duty. So that's kind of how it's worked for us. Yeah.
Well, that makes perfectly sense now that I know like your backstory. Okay, well, it just solidifies who I thought in my heart you were, because sometimes I get these massive feelings of people and I'm like, God, they're gonna think I'm so weird because I'm just feel so connected and I get it. But totally understanding now why I felt that way. And which leads into why you guys have a whole like mission work that you do together, which makes perfect sense
Yeah.
of how you can work so well together and live outside of yourself and things. So how did that come about
Yeah,
with everything else that you have going on?
I know, right? Million layers, like I said. So layer number 472.
Yep.
Yeah. So I am a devout Christian. I will put that out there. Haven't always been, but through just different through God, essentially, in my life, obviously was led down that path, and my wife was as well. So 7, 8 years ago, out of the blue, she was like, I think I need to get into missions work. I feel like I'm being called into missions work. And at that time, I'm like, what are you talking about? This is crazy. Like, no, I don't know who you are. Like, what's going on here? Very foreign to me at first. But she really continued to push that issue and really felt called to serve outside of the country. And through our church, she ended up connecting with some individuals and started going down to the Dominican Republic and did some missions work down there. And I would see the change in her when she came back. I would stay back and watch the kids. And I would see this change in her and just how fired up she was. And for probably 2 or 3 years, she was like, you got to go, you'll love it. And I'm like, I don't want no part of that. I
Yeah.
really was kind of like against it at first, but she is pretty persistent, just like I am. And she continued to push. And slowly, my heart started to change. And I was like, all right, I got to get down there and see what this is all about. So a couple years ago, we went down together to the Dominican Republic through a couple mutual friends of ours in our church. And we stayed at a facility in San Pedro is where we go. The majority of the population down there is mostly Haitian refugees. And if you know anything about the turmoil between like the Haitians and the Dominicans, there's like oil and water. There's a lot of bad blood there. In some places, not everywhere. But in that particular area, there's a lot of refugees from Haiti that have come over and unfortunately just have no real opportunity to grow or thrive. It's very difficult for them to get jobs. It's very difficult for them to even get medical treatment or even have like schooling or education for the children. And there's just a lot of poverty, unfortunately. And so we went down and started working with this organization and doing food missions. So what we would do is we would go down, raise up a bunch of money, collect some donations, go down there with all of that, put that money back into the economy by buying food from the local markets. And then the volunteers that we would have would package up these food packets. We're using pillowcases now because they're pretty thrifty and you can use those, you can multi-purpose them.
Yeah.
And we put this food packet together, and one pillowcase full of food, a packet basically will feed a family for about a week. It's all, food that is local to them. And we go into these villages, bates, the communities in the city in San Pedro, and we just distribute this food, and we go out and just hang out and be present and be purposeful. And it is the most amazing thing ever. I mean, I thought serving in the Marine Corps and serving that purpose was like the most fulfilling thing for me. Going down there and being a part of that and seeing that world and that type of service, it's incredible. I mean, it's really, I thought I was going to be the blessing, so to speak, for these communities and the people down there. And I'm telling you, they're the blessing to me, and it was just so cool and eye opening to see everything happening down there. And from that, like one time down there, I was hooked. And so every year since then, we've continued to go down there and develop that area, and we continue to serve in that area, and we stay in the same place every time. So we've watched the niños and the niñas from that area kind of grow up, and they're like our kids now. We go down. They were like 6 or 7 when we first went down, and now they're teenagers, and we talk to them on social media, and it's amazing. So from that, eventually what we hope to do is, once I retire from the Marine Corps, our goal is to actually start a nonprofit organization and continue to serve in that area. And we've built homes down there. We're doing the food mission still. We take volunteers with us. Last year, we led a team of 10 individuals, volunteers that went down with us for 10 days. And we're open to whatever they need,
Right.
really. I think rather than just putting parameters on it, it's like, let's go down there and let's be willing to serve, and let's do whatever the need is.
Oh, I like that. I like that, because
Yeah.
sometimes what we think is needed is not necessarily
Right.
what's needed. So you go down and it's kind of a useless, it's more of an ego boosting pat on your back. You could go home and say you did this great things, but you
Right.
left them with nothing. So
Right.
I love that you did everything there. You're rebuilding the economy. You're like, how are we serving? It's that blind,
Right.
again, it's that kind
Yeah.
of blind faith. Obviously,
Yeah.
there's organization and to make it work, but
Yeah.
you have it.
Yeah, we're real grassroots and just organic and go with the flow. And I like that. And I think, opportunities arise and needs arise, and you're there and you're open to it and you're willing. And I've done all kinds of stuff down there that I did not plan on doing. I've been asked to speak at churches, and I don't speak the language. They speak a mixture between Spanish and, Haitian or Creole. And then it's almost like blended down there in that particular area that we go. So even if you are fluent in one of those two languages, it's still really difficult to understand. So we have translators that live down there that are local to the area. And then some of the boys that have been hanging out with us, they come out with us everywhere we go. And we just, I've spoken at churches down there. I've spoken in public. I've gone to houses and just done, calls to houses. Whatever comes up. And
That's
I think
so
that's
cool.
what's really cool about it. Yeah, it's been great. Yeah.
Do you normally go, because everything kind of got totally obviously wonky. Like I was going to go and do that educators workshop, which I am pissed beyond belief that I didn't get to go to.
Yeah, we'll turn it back on. It's gonna happen. So we'll get you down there.
Yeah, and I know that you were going right like after that time at the end of April.
That's
Is
right.
that when you always kind of go? And this is for a personal reason, because I told you, like, I'm going to go on one of these trips one of these times, but I couldn't do it when you first told me because it was like a month away. But is it that when you normally go?
Yeah, so far at least we typically try to go down around April. We kind of work with around like the New Hampshire and the Maine schools when the schools get out, because we have had some teenagers and students go with us, and we want to give them that opportunity. And a lot of parents or whatever, that might not necessarily be able to go at a different time of year. So April has, like, end of April, early May has really been the sweet spot for us. I think eventually what will happen is we'll open it up, and I'm hoping to be able to do multiple trips down a year. Obviously right now I'm limited because I still have, responsibilities with the Marine Corps. I won't put that off. So I use my time wisely, but yeah, it seems like that time of year has just been a good time of year for us to go. A lot of people are available at that time. And the weather down there is really temperate, I guess, at that time of year as well. Like there is a hurricane season down there, and it does get really hot down there in the summer. So that April, May time frame, it's 85, 90 degrees. It's pretty warm, compared to what we have, but you're on the beach. I mean, you're down, it's an island it's beautiful. And there's, it's very tropical, and there's a lot of amazing, fruits and foods and stuff down there. So it's pretty cool. And we like to go at that time of year. That's worked out for us really well.
That's good. Okay. So that's, cause that is on one of my, it's on my wish list of to-dos. So I had to, for selfish reasons, ask that question.
Yeah.
So I can prepare my life and everything.
Yep.
And side note, because I'm way over my time. I told you 20 minutes, and it is way past 20 minutes. But
I could have told you that right away.
I know. I should have known from like every time we've had a conversation. But I have to say, it's not expensive it's not like you're making money off of the people that go. I have to mention that. So I forget what you told me that it was, but it's super reasonable, and it's basically nothing.
Yeah, we don't make any money at all. Every dollar that goes into the like the donations or the missions work, it all goes into that community. In fact, we don't leave there with anything. Even the clothes that I take down there that I wear while I'm down there, we'll wash all that at the end of the trip, and then I give that out. So that's so cool.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah.
I'll buy, I mean, I've got, you know, different like sneakers and running shoes and things like that I'll intentionally buy throughout the year. And then I'll take them down there and give them to the boys down there. Cause they just have nothing. And they'll reuse it, you know, and it's great. So it's not uncommon for me to go down with like a sea bag of stuff and then come back with literally like flip flops, shorts, and a t-shirt on. Cause I just want to leave it all there. Cause
Cool.
It'll get used.
Yeah.
It'll get used down there. It's great. So, I mean, airfare, obviously we can't get around that. So we try to book in advance, and that way it's pretty cheap. And we do group bookings through JetBlue. We go down, we leave from Boston to go down. So they work with us and they're pretty good on that. And then everything else, I mean, the room and board down there literally for 10 days is like $300. And that's your 3 meals a day, the facility that you stay in, and they do your laundry. And that's all set up through the school that we stay at with the pastor that's down there. So it's really, you know, affordable. It's not a vacation. You're not going down and staying some lavish thing. I mean, we're in the community.
Yeah.
But it's great. And then everything else that we do is for the food missions and the funding and supplies and building supplies. So yeah, it's really cheap.
Yeah.
Really cheap.
When do you start booking that stuff? When do you start being like, okay, people, I got to know that you're serious and get your money ready because we're booking the flight kind of thing?
Absolutely. Yeah. So if we plan to go in April, we typically start, you know, like prepping the skids, so to speak, around the fall time of the previous year. So this particular trip in April, we were scheduled to go at the end of April. We started planning for that in probably September of last year.
Okay.
And so my wife and I will go out to churches. We'll speak at churches. We'll go out and work with, you know, people that have gone on the trips with us in the past. I've had all kinds of like really cool people that have come on the trips with us. Last year, we had a young man from Canada that found me online on my Instagram page. Had never met me before, and he saw a post that I did about the missions trip and reached out to me. We Skyped. I got to know him, and next thing you know, he's flying from Alberta, Canada, to the airport in Boston. Has never met me before in person, and went down there with us for 10 days. And I mean, it was amazing. And he was awesome. It was so fun to have him on the trip, and he had never been on a missions trip before. So that was his first experience. And, you know, I know he'll be coming back with me again. So yep. And we do, we're open, and any time of year, really, if anyone reaches out to me, my wife and I will typically try to connect on Skype or a social media platform, just to get to know you and share our story and talk a little bit more about, you know, what we do and what you're looking to do. And from there, if you're feeling like, hey, this is cool, I want to do this, jump on board, let's go. So we need all the help we can get. And, you know, and if it's not through us, but you're interested in going and doing your own thing down there or anywhere for that matter, we're all about sharing information and talking about some of the lessons we've learned and, you know, the do's and don'ts, so to speak. So.
Right. Well, like I said, it's on my list. I know I have till September, but it's just when you told me about it, and I don't really get that much about going out of the country and doing something like that. You know, I never get that real drive to, but I was like, oh, and maybe it's because I feel comfortable and I know you. Maybe that was it. Like, I'm like, okay, I feel safe. I know you. I know, you know, I've met your wife. I understand your heart. So maybe that was it. I don't know, because I know people too that go to other places, but I got to do some digging. Why I was so drawn actually to that, because now that you got me thinking about my own personality here. And so, anyways, I'm super excited about being able to join you, if not this coming year, you know, a year after that. And man, Meredith, she just said that she went to the education workshop as a military, as a wife. Very cool, because she's a teacher in the elementary school.
Oh, great. Yeah.
So I got to talk to her about that experience as a wife going in, because that's like where they are, where you're molded and everything. Oh.
That's our transformation right there.
Yeah.
So, that's a peek behind the curtain, so to speak.
That is a peek behind the curtain. You can find out some very useful secrets. But before I let you go, and I let everybody else go, and thank you for spending extra time with me. I ask everybody this question, and you've got to answer with the first thing that comes to your mind, no matter how wacky it might sound to you. But in this moment right now, what does love mean to Bryce?
Love in this, I think in this moment right now, given the circumstances and, you know, all the things that we're kind of like, you know, the challenges that are out there in society right now with things going on, and being quarantined at home with your significant other, maybe a little more than you're used to. I think there has to be intention. So I think love has to be intentional, and you have to really make a point to be a little more forgiving, a little more understanding, and a little more intentional in your, communication.
Yeah.
So I know it's been a challenge for us. I am not somebody that is home very often. I am on the road typically Monday through Friday regularly, and that's been my thing for the last at least 7 years on recruiting duty, traveling all the time. My wife works from home full time, and she's lucky to have that opportunity. So me being at the house now as much as I've been, also with the kids and with our injured puppy right now,
Yeah.
it has been a challenge for sure. And I think that we have been through so much that we're able to, really kind of recognize and stop and say, all right, let's put the emotions aside and let's focus on this and really kind of communicate it out. But I think being intentional is huge right now. It's easy to assume, it's easy to fall into these, emotional traps or whatever. And, I think you just really have, that's my thought process on it, is just trying to be intentional, trying to be in the moment, and trying to appreciate, the little things, like all these things we take for granted. We have the opportunity to really kind of, take a deep breath and recognize that. So that would be my thought process on it.
I like that. I like that one.
Yeah.
It was kind of, I talked about the other day, is that what you tend to grows, what you don't tend to.
Yeah.
It's like a garden, right? So
Yeah.
it's perfect about being intentional, because it's very, very easy to kind of go, just put your blinders on and not care and just be wherever,
Yeah.
I like
Yeah.
that one. It's my favorite question, because, it makes you think. And that some people, what comes to their mind, they're like, I have no idea why that came. Someone said safe, and I was like, oh, security. Yep. Right.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
you never know what you're going to get. That's it. Oh, but thank you. And guys, follow him on Instagram. Huge Instagram man here. And I just think it's Soapbox, or is it Soapbox Snyder on Instagram?
It's Soapbox Snyder.
Okay. So Soapbox Snyder. And if you don't, you can go to my page. I've tagged him on everything. So you will find him no matter what. And please, if you have questions, I mean, he's open, and check into his mission. Like, maybe we could get a group that all kind of goes from here next April. That can happen.
Yeah, that would be awesome. We would love it. Yeah.
Yeah. It's going to come fast too.
Yeah. It's great. Yeah. I mean, we should do another one of these. We can do a part 2.
Yes.
And maybe gather some questions or whatever. And if people want to know more, like, we could really do, kind of more just a talk on that, because there's so much to it. I mean, I just scratched the surface, but it's incredible. And it's been life-changing. It really has. It's changed my entire perspective on life and the things that I thought were important in life. And that's what I love about it the most, is, looking back 10 years ago at the Bryce that I was 10 years ago versus where I am now, that soul moment and that event has really done some work on me. It really has. And I think it's awesome. So I'm not saying it's perfect for everybody. And a lot of people are like, I don't got time for that. But yeah, put your heart out there and be willing and open to do things that are maybe a little uncomfortable. And the reward is great, and that's the coolest part about it. So,
well, I thank your wife for being persistent, for God placing it in her heart, and then being persistent till you caught on and not giving up on it. So you can give her a big old hug and kiss, and thank you from me.
Yeah, I will. Yeah.
To her. But again, thank you so much for joining, and to everybody else out there that's watching, as always, love hard, love pure, love true. And until next time, we will see you.